Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the Sofa Series Artist Spotlight. Today with us is Tasha Smith Godinez, who is a local harpist and educator. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
Great. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you from San Diego? Are you a transplant, or yeah, give us the brief
Sure.
history.
I am a born and raised San Diegan.
Great.
Yeah. Grew up in the Spring Valley area, so south, kind of southeast county. Um, let's see. I even went to San Diego State University, so I'm really like
Go Aztecs.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love San Diego. I ended up leaving a bit to study in Paris, and I thought, oh, I'm going to want to stay in Paris. And then I was in Paris, and I missed sunny San Diego. So,
Yeah, that's the thing. So I'm not from here, and that's the thing I didn't quite prepare myself for. I thought it was only going to be temporary. I'll go to school and then I'll leave. Then it's like, wait a minute. It's just like nice here all the time.
yeah,
Huh. I think I'll stay.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but how does a kid decide the harp, and how does the parent say, yeah, we're gonna invest in this furniture piece?
Yeah. So, well, I started out with violin, Suzuki violin lessons when I was really little. I was like three.
Yeah.
And I have an older brother, and he used to play the violin. And so he started first. So, of course, I wanted to play the violin
Of
like
course.
my older brother, like every little sibling, right?
Yeah.
And then he was playing in the San Diego Youth Symphony, and I saw a harpist in his group. And I remember the conductor had stopped. I remember this rehearsal well because I was standing in the doorway, and the conductor stopped and was talking to the kids. And I said, from the doorway, yelled, "Mom, there's a harp!" And everyone turned around and looked at me. It's very embarrassing.
Who's
But
that?
I must have been like six, but I remember that moment because there was a harp, and
Yeah.
and when I was 8 years old, on Christmas morning, I walked out, and there in the living room, amongst a bunch of toys, was a harp that my parents had rented, a little like a Celtic harp that they had rented for me. And
Oh,
they had found a teacher who was all the way up in Escondido. So, from Spring Valley to Escondido, it was like a 50-minute drive
that's a
every
schlep.
week from
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
So, and my parents, they were willing to do that, which was amazing.
Oh,
So I was
that's so
eight,
great.
and yeah, it was like the best Christmas present ever.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Are your parents musical too, or are they just
My
like the
mom
most
is
amazing
mostly,
people?
my mom plays the piano, mostly
Uh-huh.
self-taught.
Yeah.
She'd had lessons real young, but then they couldn't afford it. So she didn't continue with lessons, but she's definitely a music lover. My dad does not play instruments, so he's our listener. He's our
Great.
audience.
But that must be like a good little sounding board. So like if the person who is pretty green and knows nothing about music, like, well, what do you think about this? And then they'll give you their unbridled opinion. Just go for
Yes,
it.
except that he's my dad's and he loves me very much. So, he says, "Oh, that's beautiful, honey."
Yeah. I always get the, oh, that's interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, depending on what I'm playing. Yes, see, that's interesting also.
That's interesting. It's my favorite.
That's what more avant-garde things, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that sounds like a squeaky fence, doesn't it? A little bit, a little bit. You're right. You got it. So you're teaching. You're on faculty at USD. Is that right?
I'm on faculty at USD. Yes,
Yeah.
it's so just teaching harp,
Mm-hmm. Are you?
and then I have a private studio for harp students that I teach from my home. Of course, right now it's all FaceTime and Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
But so I have a studio of actually right now, surprisingly enough, I have 28 students in my studio.
That's fantastic.
And some play the Celtic harp, some play pedal harp, or the big, if you don't know what a pedal harp is, it's the type that you saw me play in the video.
Yeah.
And they're range in age from like 6 years old to in their 70s,
Wow.
and all within there. So it's really fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I have a like in the harp like school, right? In harp
Hmm.
training, as you go through conservatories and college and all of that, you do the things that you're supposed to do. Are how did you come to contemporary music? Is it something that is nurtured in harp pedagogy, or is it something that you had to be like, could I try this to your
Yeah.
teachers?
It depends on which teachers you have, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, most of my, well, all of my teachers were very much in traditional harp music, which is within reason, but quite a bit of it. The main body of that is about 200 years worth of mostly French, a little bit of English or German composers, but mostly French composers
Mm-hmm.
within about 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I I love that music, and that's
Yeah.
what I played most of my life growing up. I played just basically that. And then when I graduated from let's see, it was actually about the time I was getting my master's degree at San Diego State. So I started feeling a little bit stuck and a little bit like I wasn't sure that my identity was in the music I was playing,
Mm-hmm.
and which was causing kind of performance anxiety and feeling like, but I'm not living up to all of these,
Yeah.
500 other harpists who have recorded and performed this same music, and I
Honestly.
don't want to be compared to them. And
Yeah.
I was kind of having a crisis a bit in what I was playing.
Yeah.
And that's when I, on my own, started to search out what is my identity in music and what do I feel that represents me more, because I feel like I'm playing music that doesn't represent me. And that's where I think the anxiety is coming from. And it was then that I actually started to look more into what does playing new music mean? What does talking to composers and having a piece written for you mean? What is it to do that? And I actually have never had a teacher that taught me how to do any of that. So all of my experience with contemporary music and new music has been through the act of playing it,
Mm-hmm.
which sometimes has meant I've been sent the music and I'm completely confused by the score, and I go into the rehearsal pretending I know what I'm doing.
Totally.
And
Totally.
then I go out of it going, okay, I know a little more now.
Yeah, right. I'm just gonna like
Uh,
approximate some gestures here. It looks like it just does this. Is that
exactly. And then
right?
it's like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, not that. And I go, okay, okay.
Okay.
So it's been a lot of trial and error
Yeah.
and figuring out what it all means. But through doing that and doing that on my own, I've realized what musics I love to play. And it's
Mm-hmm.
actually brought back my love for playing the traditional music that I had at first wanted to completely separate myself from.
Yeah, I think that is like so that is such a like a recurring theme for all of us new music nerds. We're sort of like relegated to the new music, section of the conservatory. We're just like these weirdos who just like I don't know, who like to make wacky noises and it's like, well, that's not very serious. And like, well, actually, I don't know. It's like it's the thing that made me understand my technique the most
Mm-hmm.
when you're forced to challenge the traditional technique and
Yeah.
you're asked to make a sound that is antithetical to what I've been
Mm-hmm.
trained to do my whole life.
Yeah.
But it made me approach my Mozart in a very different way with these new lenses where I could feel that I could explore a wider range of sound now. It's just this
Mm-hmm.
bizarre, but that was my path, and I don't know. I think I find that with most people who have gravitated towards contemporary music is that it kind of puts a little bit of a deeper appreciation for the Schubert, for the war horses, the big standard rep that everybody loves and everybody loves for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you find that your own playing has become a little bit more colorful, that you found a wider palette range to explore?
Absolutely, absolutely. And now, through my experience, both with the more traditional repertoire and new music and searching for these new sounds, and I've now found that what I used to be very deathly afraid of, which was improvising,
Hmm.
now I've actually found a love for it,
I
and in
know.
doing it, I find, wait, I'm pulling from this harpist composer from 1800, and
Yeah.
the techniques I learned from playing that piece,
Yeah.
and I'm pulling from these things that I've learned from playing something completely different and very new,
Yeah.
and it's really given me this very rich palette for when I want to improvise. So it's
Improvisation, that feels like a dirty word in classical music, which
yeah.
is so strange because I mean the whole like the entirety of Baroque and early music is it encourages that, right? But
Exactly.
anything like Mozart and beyond, it's very, you put the dots at this place when I tell you to, and then So
Yeah.
how did you come to improv?
Well, I always was intrigued by jazz music. I've loved jazz music my whole life, but I always thought, well, I chose an instrument that there are a few jazz harpists, but I chose an instrument that I don't think I can do that,
Yeah.
and especially mostly because of the harmonic challenges with the pedals and getting to be able to have it's we have all the notes of the keyboard, but we don't have it laid out in front of us.
Right.
So being able to play something very chromatic is challenging on the harp.
Oh, can you explain that a little bit?
Oh,
Maybe.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do
It's
the
a little
pedals
hard to
work?
explain without being able to show everything.
Yeah.
So basically, the strings of the harp, when we tune them to C flat major. We have all flats,
Oh.
and we have 7 pedals for our feet, 3 for the left foot and 4 for the right foot, and each pedal has 3 levels. So when we tune our strings, our pedals are all the way up in the top level, which means they are not engaged, they're not being used. And so we've tuned them to flat. Each pedal is for one string globally. So for each pedal controls, let's see, there is the C pedal that controls the sound of all the C strings. There's the D pedal for all the D. And that's why we have the 7, one for each different note
Oh.
of the scale. So if I take the C pedal and I push it with my foot into the second level, it works a system that goes up through the column of rods that then turns these discs on the top part of the harp, that then one disc pinches each C string and makes it C natural.
Oh
And
my
if I do that
God.
next time, a second disc pinches the string and makes it C sharp.
Wow.
So we can have 3 pitches per string.
Yeah.
But if I want to play a chromatic scale, that's like dancing. You're moving your feet like crazy. And trying
Yeah.
to do something very chromatic while playing is really challenging. And that's where I got really hung up with for improvisation or for playing, whether it was jazz improv or free improv. It didn't matter. But when I really got pushed to do it is I met a percussionist and we formed a duo. He's a composer, and one of the pieces that I shared for the Project Link is a piece that we usually play together. And he told me one day, "You're going to improvise." I said, "I don't think I am. No."
I
And he said,
don't really.
"Don't worry, you're going to." And and he was right, of course. He's been right about everything he's told me, which is funny.
Yeah.
But so little by little, I started, trying to push myself to get more comfortable. And he would start writing out some things like start like this and then do something different. And I would start and so little by little, I just started practicing it at home. And then in our performances, I would put a little bit more into our performance until somehow I just kind of it got easier. And now I'm experimenting more with improvising more chromatically, being able to move the pedals too, and it's a work in progress.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll always
Yeah.
be that, right?
Yeah.
You don't ever
That's
get
the
to a
beauty,
point where you're like, yep, did that, learned it, gonna move on to the next thing, You're always
Isn't that
gonna be
the beauty of
developing that
playing an instrument,
language.
though? It's like that
Yeah.
carrot always in front of you
Oh,
that you
sure.
never actually reach.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. It's a wonderful never reaching there because you're always growing.
Yeah, but there's like as a student, right? You sort of you feel like that is something that is achievable, or at least maybe I believed that. Like, okay, well, at some point it'll just all be perfect. But the professional, I think when I first started calling myself a professional musician was when I started to accept and understand the toxic relationship with perfection,
Yeah.
and accept that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Absolutely. And that was a struggle for me. It was feeling like, well, why am I not getting perfect performances? Why do I always have some little mistake? Why can't I do that? And feeling like I just wasn't living up to it. And when I finally said, okay, I'm never going to have that. Let me just always try to be better. And accepting it and saying, you know what, that's okay. And when I started talking to other musicians and realizing that I'm not the only one who felt that way, that
Yeah.
we're not alone in that emotion, that goes, okay, it's okay. We're all
Okay.
we're all there.
It's okay. It's totally
Yeah.
okay. There is no such there is no spoon. There is no such thing as perfection, you know? And
Yeah.
that's something that I think is difficult for really young musicians to understand, right? You
Yeah.
don't like, well then what am I doing? Like you're just getting better. That's
Yeah.
all. You're just getting better. Better than you
Exactly.
were the last time.
I try to tell my students, look forward to where you want to go, but always look back to where where you've been. And what you'll see is the improvement you've made. And you always know what's ahead, what you want to do. But don't forget where you were, because
Right.
otherwise you'll think you haven't improved, you know?
Right. It'll feel like, oh, why am I
Yeah.
doing this? It can be so like not debilitating, but it can be so just it feels so. I felt so disappointed all the time in myself. Like, God damn it, why
Exactly.
can't I get that? Why am I not able to do that yet?
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so let's
That we all feel that way, but
yeah.
somehow a lot of us, it takes a long time to finally talk about that. If only we talked about it sooner, we'd all realize that
We'd all
it's
just be so brilliant, man. Or maybe not.
okay.
Maybe not. So tell me a little bit more about this duo that you have. So you call yourselves Music Beyond Borders, is that
Yeah.
right?
So we started out as the Garcia Godinez duo, but we call ourselves Music Beyond Borders. And so Christopher Garcia and myself, it's a really interesting duo because nothing about it is traditional in any way.
No.
Uh, he plays all of the what you would consider, standard percussion instruments. He plays marimba, he plays drum set, but really his first love is the Indian tabla, and he studied tabla at Cal Arts a while back. It was
Yeah.
a while ago, but he studied tabla at Cal Arts, and then he after that also became quite an expert in Mexica percussion, which is the ancient percussion instruments of the Mayan and Aztec cultures. And so I know.
It's like a little bit of this, some of that.
Yeah,
It's a good
so
little
it's funny
recipe.
because when we perform, he has quite an array of instruments that he brings. And typically, when I perform somewhere, the harp is like the star. Not me, but the harp.
The harp.
People want to know about the harp. That what is that thing? And how does it work? And when he and I perform together, people forget the harp is even there. And they're staring at the array of instruments that he has in front of him and just in awe of what he's doing, which is wonderful. I love that.
Yeah.
But it is quite funny.
But also I'm thinking about it like at the beginning, before every performance, you see the lonely harpist up there tuning her instrument, just like all by herself, But now you got a friend who has to set up all his shit,
Yes.
So you're not alone.
It takes him much longer to load in and out. Oh my goodness. But so he's a composer also, and he writes music for us, and then we play lots of other music. So the song that I recorded for the Project Blank, it's by Egberto Gismonti, who's a Brazilian composer and pianist guitarist, and we play a lot of music by Chick Corea. We play some let's see, Charlie Hayden, and then of course by Chris. So it's a lot of fun, actually.
What sorts of like sound worlds do you feel like you can explore in this type of a setting that you maybe couldn't otherwise?
Yeah, well, basically he tells me play what you hear. So if there's a sound that I hear, I have to figure out how am I going to make that sound on the harp. So it comes from everything from putting a super ball or a bouncy ball on a stick and finding all the different ways I can use that. What is that going to make? I use a giant chopstick and all kinds of things that create these sounds that I'm hearing. And so it's really fun because basically there's no rules. I can do anything I want to do. If is the sound that my ears need to hear, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not about which special effect or which sound world can I use. It's more like, what is it that the music is calling for? And then there's no rules. I can do whatever. It's great.
Yeah. Is this sort of like your first your kind of true love when it comes to music expression, or are you still kind of turning to the oldies? Uh,
It's hard to say, actually. I feel like right now, at least right now, while being in quarantine, I don't know when my next concert will be, my actual
right.
gig concert, you know,
Right.
going out of the house. And so when I go to practice, at first I was thinking, well, what am I going to play? And that was part of the reason why I started doing the quarantine music videos. And I've done a Facebook Live. I'm going to do another one this week. And, you know, what am I going to do? And I decided, okay, right now I'm just going to play music that I love, whatever that is. And so I've just been pulling out, it's interesting what that means on the stand. On the
Well, what
music
is
stand.
yeah? What are you discovering? What does it mean?
Well, it's lately I've been playing, well, I was working on the last pieces for my CD that just came out. So right before quarantine, I finished recording a CD that's an album that'll be out on May 30th.
Hmm.
And that's all Chick Corea songs that I arranged for the harp.
So good.
So, so that's a lot of fun because it's like, um, and because of the harmonic issues, you know, if you take a jazz pianist, they can do anything they want to. It's all out in front of them.
Yeah.
So figuring out what that means on the harp. And then let's see, I was arranging the music that I play with Chris for harp solo. So the Gismonci and some of Christopher Garcia's own tunes or songs. And I guess the other thing is I have a group of new music, avant-garde pieces that a project of 5 American composers that have written for me.
Great.
So 6 pieces, and that I'm supposed to record. I just don't know now exactly when am I allowed to go to a recording studio?
Right.
That's tricky. So I'm supposed to record them in August, and so hopefully that'll happen. But it's
Yeah.
5 pieces for solo harp by various American composers, and then 1 piece for harp and the khan, which is it's the Thai. It's from Thailand. It's a wind instrument, and Christopher Adler, who's in San Diego.
I think I have. You mean this?
Yes, yes, you have one. I have a little tiny one that's a souvenir thing. It's not a real one.
God, yeah, we
What
have a
on
real one.
earth?
I don't know why we
You know what it is.
I do. I have a couple of Thai students, and the first time they came into our house, they're like, "Why do you have that?" I was like, "I don't know. We just do."
Well, I have it's up on a shelf, so I'm not going to grab it, but I have a little mini one that I bought as a souvenir.
Yeah,
It's not a real, it makes sound, but not very good.
it's a great
But so
instrument.
Christopher Adler wrote a duo for
Yeah.
khan and harp, which is really incredible. The sound that those two, the overtones and everything that those 2 instruments can create together is absolutely amazing. So that's on the list, but of course he and I can't rehearse together well right now, but we're making do.
Yeah, yeah. Can you talk a little bit about every time I try to explain overtones to somebody, they're just like, what is that? How do you explain overtones?
Oh, not very well. I'm if you want to really know like the mathematical how those things I can't explain. It's way beyond my capacity.
Yeah.
But the way I explain it with the harp is that there's 2 ways. One is when you play the string, start listening carefully to all the sounds that you hear after the initial pitch, and so that I have my harp.
Demo.
Sound won't work well, but one great thing about the harp is that unlike the piano, everything will vibrate.
Right.
So if I play middle C, there's all of these strings are at different rates, all the way down to the bottom, are vibrating a tiny bit. And so with the harp, it's great because you can play the string and then you can actually listen, and you're going to hear bits of pitch above and below
Yeah.
that are also ringing. So to harp students, that's how I explain it. There's which might not sound brilliant to anyone else, but when you have the harp next to you, you can actually hear them, which is very helpful. Unlike some,
Right.
I suppose on the piano with the pedal down.
With the pedal down, yeah. Yeah, I explained it to my students that way. So I'll depress the sustain, and then I'll do like octave low register C, in 4 octaves, and then you can hear the rest of the strings are kind of dancing sympathetically to the sound
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
initially vibrating. But in wind instruments, it's like, we're not computers, right? We're playing things made of wood and natural fibers, and all of these surfaces and substances, they all vibrate with a single sound. We're not like creating a sine tone.
Yeah.
um and so, like with the voice, you can start to kind of feel it throughout your body, right? Like if you go to a really loud concert, you feel the thud in your
Yes.
chest, and you can feel it throughout, which is, I think, interesting. But I'm excited to hear the con and the harp together. I think that would sound amazing,
It
totally
does.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So
Very cool.
that'll be on an album coming out at the beginning of next year. I think it's supposed to be March or April that it's released. So
Awesome. Very,
yeah.
very cool. So what other composers are you working with, and what do you find, how do you find that kind of working relationship with the composer?
hmm I'm working with Sidney Bokurin. He's in New York, and it's interesting because each of these composers I kind of met in very different circumstances. But Sidney is a friend of Christopher Adler's, and when I premiered the piece for Con and Harp in 2017, Sidney was at the concert. He had composed a piece in that for Christopher, and he was premiering it that day. So he and I met, and we're talking, and he said he'd love to write for harp,
Yeah.
which was exciting. So
Great.
yeah, so I have a piece, and that I premiered this past November at USD. So that's the premiere performance. It's on my YouTube page, and that's called Hidden. It's a beautiful piece, and that actually has an interesting story because he he had this idea where he wanted to take a traditional repertoire piece, something that was very traditional to the harp, and then he wanted to write over the structure of the piece.
Oh.
And so, which then when I after that I shared with him about my story of kind of leaving traditional repertoire and having the new music take me back to it. And it's like, this is brilliant. We are thinking this kind of same thing.
Had to go.
So he took one of my favorite pieces, which is Pièce symphonique by Henriette Renier, and he took that piece and he composed over its structure. And what I'm supposed to do, but I couldn't do it for the premiere because I was given the score a little too close to the premiere date, was
That happens.
supposed to have earbuds in and be listening to my own recording of Pièce symphonique while playing his piece outward.
Whoa.
So it's hidden that I'm hearing that piece, but what I'm playing is, and hence the name, the title, Hidden.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to the point yet where I can listen to it and play it at the same time. It's actually quite hard because listening and then trying to play my piece.
I mean, for crying out loud, that is a mind game, man.
It's a little bit like being in an ensemble.
Yeah.
However, but at the same time, hearing it directly into the ears it's more than just being in an ensemble. It's so direct, and then trying to play with it. So I'm getting there, but I haven't quite got
Yeah, I can imagine that having to be able to adjust and hear what you are doing, your live component is being kind of like drowned out or muffled by
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On top of like listening to your recording and being like, oh God, I should have done that,
Well, you have to get over that right away.
Yeah. There's no time. There's no time.
No time for that. No time for that. But then there's Christopher Adler, there's Sidney Bokurin, there's Oh my goodness, now I'm going to draw blanks, which is embarrassing.
Of course.
John Forshee, who
Oh
is
yeah.
not from San Diego, but who was at UCSD.
UCSD homie. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So that's exciting, and we've just known each other a long time. And he said, you know, I really want to write a piece for you. Will you play it? I said, absolutely. And then,
Of course.
so yeah, it hasn't been premiered yet, but it will be.
Do you have much input in what gets written for you, or do you leave it up to them, or do you workshop with the composers, or I guess everybody's a little different?
Everybody's a little bit different, but we tend to come up with an idea, kind of, you know, I tell them, well, what is it that you hear or are thinking of first, you know. I don't dictate, I want this and this and this. I feel like that puts too many constraints on, I might say this, a certain length or something, more like, you know.
Yeah.
But then we do tend to work together and get a feel for what will inspire them to compose, but what will also inspire me to love playing it, you know. And so, and then there's Jose Gurria Cardenas, who's in Mexico City, but he spent a good part of his life in the U.S. and studied at USC. So he's a Southern California, not from here, but you know, has been here quite a bit. And he wrote two pieces for me. One that can be either a duet with Christopher Garcia for our duo, and then another that is a solo. So those are very interesting. And have
you ever like been given something and you look at it and you're like, I don't know what does that mean? Or has a composer kind of drawn something out of the harp that you had never really considered before?
Yes, actually, so one of Jose's pieces, it's called Mobile Active Simulated Humanoids.
Great.
And amazing. That was a moment of when I read the title going, what? Which actually is, it's based on the inspiration for it is the kind of mob complex, you know, how we tend to just follow without even taking the time to understand. And then I found it quite interesting. And the piece is very mechanical, which is not the typical way to compose for the harp. So it really does kind of sound robotic when you're playing. And it's been I've had to think about, okay, how am I going to work this out on the instrument? And it's not that it's not written well for the instrument itself. It's just such a different approach. Yeah. Another piece that did kind of challenge me that way, but it's not from this project, but a composer from New York, Michael Byron, he wrote a piece for me. It was the very first piece I ever commissioned. And it was right out of grad school. I had written a paper on his music, and he hadn't written anything for harp. And I had an interview with him when I was doing research for this paper. And he's a CalArts alum.
Great.
And
says everything.
So I said, in the interview, I said, you know, have you ever thought of writing for the harp? And he said, well, I've never had a harpist ask me. So I commissioned a piece from him. I came up with all of the money. It was my first experience doing this, and I commissioned it, and it was supposed to be something like a 15-minute piece. And what I got was a 26-minute continual, it's a perpetual motion piece.
Oh my God.
And it's, nothing lines up rhythmically, you know, and nothing ever repeats for 26 minutes. And there's the only rest written into the music, into 26 minutes of polyrhythms. The only rest is before the first note.
Thanks.
I love the piece. I've only performed it about 3 or 4 times, I think, because it's such a monster to prepare mentally for. Yeah. But I did record it and I did perform it a few times, and I look forward to performing it again in the future.
I mean, that's a different kind of virtuosity, though, to be that to like it takes this level of focus. I don't know if you've ever explored the music of Morton Feldman, for example.
Yes.
Right? It's just like these events in the instrument. They sound entirely random, but it is notated within an inch of its life, right? These things just happen to have to happen exactly as it's written. Otherwise, the whole ship falls apart.
Exactly.
And it is
Yeah.
exhausting to just focus that intensely and to do the math. Like it's like, okay, it's 4/5, and then it's 3 over, you know.
Yes. Oh, the learning process. It took me about 2 years to learn
Yeah.
because, I can't stop my entire life just to learn
Right.
the piece. And so it took me about 2 years to actually learn it well enough. And I remember when I was warming up for the premiere, uh, there were other, two of the other musicians on the program. They walked out to get some coffee, and they walked past me as I'm warming up. They came in with their coffee, and I was still playing, and I hadn't stopped. And they were, she's still playing, I haven't even gotten halfway through the piece.
Yeah.
But it's really exciting. It just takes a level of preparation that I don't always have the time for.
Right.
I haven't mentioned I have 3 children, so I don't always have the
So time is at a premium.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
But it can be so satisfying, I think. I don't know. It's like there are some pieces that we can learn quickly because we've learned to speak the language of a certain composer, right? And so we know okay, so the grace note sounds like this. We know if there's a trill, it sounds like this. We know the idiosyncrasies and the just the language. But when you're given something that is completely fresh. I don't think that people quite realize the time it takes to really, really prepare these things. Even for people who are like top of their game musicians, it takes so much time, so much time to learn how to speak Chris Adler, to learn how to speak John Forshee.
Absolutely,
Forever.
yeah.
But it can be so rewarding. It's just rewarding in a very different way, I find. I don't know. Do you find that?
Well, and absolutely, and every time I play something new, it just feels like it. What I explain it to my students is it's like a toolbox, and your tools you keep getting it, and you start out little, and then eventually it's like one of those huge tool chests,
Yeah.
and you're just constantly putting more things in it, and so it's really fun because every single new composer, everything, no matter what style of music it is, I feel like I'm just loading up those tools for the next thing, and it's exciting.
That's great. Are your kids musicians as well?
Are
they getting into the family biz?
I don't think so. Well, one of them is too young to tell. We have a 13-year-old. He plays the cello, but he's not real excited about it. And my 9-year-old plays the piano, and he likes it a little more, I think. But I don't think either of them want to become musicians, which is okay.
That is very okay.
The smallest one is 3, so he thinks he does everything,
Great. And he's great at it too, I'm sure.
And
he's great at everything.
At all of it. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for talking with me, Tasha. I've enjoyed it. And thank you so much for contributing those 2 beautiful works. They're like they're spacious and athletic at the same time. It's just this amazing range of expression that I don't think people quite realize the harp is capable of. And so thank you so much for sharing your musical point of view with us. It's a treat for us. We love it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And tune in again. There will be more. All right. Bye.